Thanks, Kelly, for the introduction. Yes, hello everybody. My name is George Parks Davey. I'm a senior product manager here with Klarna, and I'm working on Klarna Open Banking for the last 2 years. So what I'm trying to tell you a little about today is when we look into the slides, is first of all, I will give you a little bit of an introduction to Klarna. And on the next slide, I'll show you a little bit about why open banking for Klarna, where are we today, but not only with open banking, but also where's the market actually today in its open banking offering, and what have been our learnings about being in this journey, and of course, wrapping up a little bit of ideas, there's room for innovation, and just get your thoughts on open banking. Well, so let's start. Here we go. Klarna. So first, give you a little bit of an introduction with Klarna. Klarna is all about smooth user experience. So what we do provide today is products so people can enjoy them without unnecessary complexity or friction, because we don't actually want to steal the time of our customers by keeping them in boring payment journeys. So what we want to do, we want to give them the time to enjoy their life instead of being stuck in apps and payments. So yes, our main goal is giving the consumers those superpowers and having the frictionless journey as possible. All right. Klarna, you may know Klarna from most likely from the e-commerce space. So our main value proposition is the buy now, pay later product, where we do engage with fashion brands such as H&M, Nike, or Zara, Levi's, where you buy your goods online, you get it shipped out to your home address, you try them on, you send it back, and you only pay for what you actually want to keep. So buy now and then pay later. But we also do this with furniture or electronics, basically, everything in e-commerce. But on the next slide, I will also show you a little bit around other products that we do provide to our customers. So within the Klarna app, we have the option to also provide non-payment related products here to enhance the customer's shopping experience. And one of those is the price drop feature. So the consumer has the possibility to create wish lists for items that they like across multiple stores. And we will be monitoring the price changes and then notify the customer once a price drops to below a certain threshold and engage him. If you're still interested in buying this would now be a good time. But also what we do offer is here a personalized in-app shopping deals. So once we see the customer has the possibility to say, okay, this is my preferred brands. I like to go with Adidas, Nike, or whatever. We will tell them once we see a good deal coming up, a nice coupon, discount code, and stuff like this to engage a little bit of the shopping, but on a reduced cost level. And talking about other products, on the next slide, we also have open banking. Open banking is very interesting. As you may know, we are a fully licensed bank here at Klarna, and we also have been facilitating bank payments for a long time. So this is a very interesting field that we are talking about here, and these days, obviously, it's a very hot topic around PC2 and everything. Matter of fact, when we talk about a hot topic, in a survey conducted in this year in May, we see that about 86% of the banks that were asked, they claiming they want to make use of the open banking APIs to provide more products towards their customers within the next 12 months. But also to mention here is Klarna actually is already there. So on the next slide, I will show you why. And also, I will show you, try to show you why we are the most scalable and proven open banking platform in Europe. So we've been around for quite a long time. So it's actually 15 years that we've been doing access to the bank accounts and doing bank-based payments. That was long before there was anything around PC2 or whatsoever. Just last year, we've decided to share our capabilities with the market and start offering our open banking platform. So why scalable, why proven? On an annual basis, we have around 200 million payments that we do over the bank, over this platform. And we're connected to over 5,000 banks with around 85 million customers. So on the next slide, it's a small overview of the countries that we're providing. So we have a single API, and that will give you access to 22 markets in Europe. And we just recently also have extended our offering going towards the US. on the next slide, I'll show you what is our offering made of. So we offer three services here. The first one is eventually the basis of all. It is the account information service. So with this service, we retrieve bank details such as an IBAN or an account holder name, but also transactional data from your everyday spendings on the transaction history. Then we have the payment initiation service. So the payment product is basically offering bank-based transfers. The various ones we're supporting domestic payment types like Bank Giro, or we providing you a separate payment type, a separate instant payment. So we offer you different possibilities of facilitating payments. And last but not least, we're completing the offering with our Account Insights. Account Insights is here to create meaningful details around the consumer's financial situation using machine learning technology. So when we look now here at open banking, how well is it supported actually today in the EU across the banks, across different markets, being like 2 years into the PC2 era? So when we look at 5,000 banks that I just mentioned earlier, to achieve the connection to those 5,000 banks, we need around 250 PC2 connections today, and it's still increasing. But that will not complete the offering. It's not possible to offer those many banks with just the PC2 APIs. So we will need an additional 400 fallback APIs or interfaces to make this happen. I would like to show you a little bit around the possibilities and the benefits of those different interface types. So first of all, looking at the PC2 interfaces, we see stability. Definitely stability over changes around APIs. So the API design is there. It's not to change too drastically, too often. We see change windows and all these things. So it's great. It's much more reliable. And on the access to the data, that's, I think, one of the key features that those PC2 APIs come along with. So you are able to access the bank data without the consumer being present, because the consumer can give their consent of extracting data towards you as a TPP. So this is one key feature, that we have those data available at any time. And the performance with an API is of course, API request is much faster than using the traditional fallback mechanisms. But on the fallback side, we also see a couple of benefits here. For one, it is an independent asset. So we're not dependent on the banks, on the APIs and what they decide. So we decide how do we get the data, how do we engage with the bank. And in addition to this asset, we see on a customer journey, it's really beneficial that we are able to decide how the customer journey needs to look like. And last but not least, we see the data that we're retrieving from the banks. We decide what data, when do we extract the data from the bank. We don't rely on any API definitions by the banks. So those are the benefits. Now let's give a question to you guys. Do you think it is possible today to offer consistent connections across all the markets and across all the banks in the PC2 world? So a few points I would like to give you here, that what we have observed, that every API is different. Basically, it is very, very cumbersome to develop and implement all these different APIs. Then yes, the product fit for the data. I think this is a big issue here. Coming from a pre-PC2 world, we have been running our products for so many years. And now moving into a PC2 era, we see that the data is sometimes just missing that we need for our products, and that the consumer are used to have at hand, or our merchants, our customers, right? So this is one big issue. Then we have, unfortunately, some tech issues as well. So what we do see here is that the redirection pages, they break. We get inconsistent error messages or technical responses from the bank. We see timeouts, and we see also that the bank has to do quite a lot of maintenance work to actually keep up with all the traffic that we put through. And last but not least, we have let's say the UX is mostly far from being smooth. So what we did observe is here, we see multiple SCA, strong customer authentication, where we think that is not needed and also not in line with the PC2 and RTS. We see unnecessary or bad redirection flows that needs to be improved. But in general, what we're trying to do here is not to complain too much, but also be proactive. So what we're doing here is, besides providing a product to our customers, being in constant dialogue with the banks and the regulators, but also with the EBA to actually improve the current situation with market data to prove how to go about ways of conversion rate, of data that is needed, and so on. On the next slide, let me tell you a little about our learnings. What have we learned when dealing with customers creating very, very cool products? So let me take you to the first one. So looking at the prerequisites that we are faced with, right? We think it's very important to make the best out of the two worlds. So we will combine our post and our pre-PC2 offering with accessing to the bank accounts. In this example, I will show you in the next slide. It's a company that's called Klarna. They're providing business loans towards SMEs in Sweden. And with connections to the business accounts using PC2 APIs in Sweden and completing the bank's offering with the fallback access to business accounts, we can provide a stable upload of transactional details when their customers applying for a loan. So we have seen with the next point here that about 19% of higher amounts are approved when uploading bank statements. And in addition to this, we see that the interest rate drops about an average of 5% on those loans where we have a look into the transactional details. So when you think about this, also in light with the corona pandemic here, is that we need in a lending space also another way than just the traditional ways to look at financial data to evaluate the consumer's financial situation in a fairly manner. We're moving to the next slide. So another thing that we have learned here is we want to keep it as simple as possible, right? So the customer journey needs to be smooth. We need to optimize. We just cannot put the customer into any specific kind of journey. So we need to optimize for the use case. And I want to show you here with the next slide. It is a company called Assistansbolaget. They do car insurance in Sweden. So what we did here is they're trying to provide a 1-minute car insurance sign up. And this sign up is in the end confirmed with signing into your bank account and signing up for a direct debit mandate. So what we're doing here is we have optimized the user journey by pre-filling mandatory information that is needed to do a so-called mobile bank ID authentication. So mobile bank ID is, let's say, Sweden's #1 authentication method to authenticate yourself towards the government, towards banks, or towards any technical service provider. It's like a domestic identity app. And here, by pre-filling those steps, we created a user journey that is that is shortened down from as much as 3 steps. And a very nice side effect is that it is actually a non-keyboard typing user journey. When we look at the next thing is we see all these different ideas coming in from our customers. And we've noticed it is not always about the data that we obtain from the bank. It's more about giving the consumers a story to tell, right? They need a story to relate to. They need to engagement. Why do they want to interact with your product? And they won't just do it by just seeing some data. They will have to have some rationale behind this. So with the next example, it's a Dutch company called Peaks, and they are an investment app and a robo-advisor. So what they have done is very interesting. So they are not just looking at the consumer's bank data, they are creating a story around virtual change from looking at the weekly spendings and rounding them up to like a full euro or to a full 50 cents, depending on your preference. In this way, they are driving engagement from the consumer with the app. They gamify a whole investment portfolio so the people don't see in the end, oh, there's a sustainable portfolio of ETFs. I want to invest here or there. No, what they will see is, hey, you spent 25 euros and 60 cents. Let's round it up to 30 euros and spend a roundup as your investment into your portfolio. So this is a whole different perspective for the consumer. And we do see the strategy across the board with so many great ideas around savings, and optimizing the consumer's financial well-being. Yes, let me show you some things that we do internally at Klarna. So we are not only looking at how to optimize the user journey, but also trying to identify ways to look at data and get the most value out of for our products. So on the next slide, I want to show you something that we did for Disney Plus. So when launching the Disney Plus sign up this year, a customer completes a subscription with logging into the bank account and signing up for a direct debit mandate. But there happens quite a few things here. We are able to mitigate risk while looking at possible chargebacks or bad customer credit with the used account sign up. So while logging into the bank account, we can check in the transaction history, is there anything suspicious happening? Do they have bad credit with Klarna or previous chargebacks with direct debits? But also what we do have here is, due to the successful login to the bank, we have a proven IBAN that is also in possession of the consumer who is having access to that bank account. So there will be no misuses in terms of you finding an IBAN on an invoice and you just put this in for signing up. And of course, you don't have no typos. The customers don't have to know the information by heart. As you know, probably also from yourself, knowing your IBAN by heart is quite cumbersome and challenging. And the best of all, it is a scalable solution. So with this one single solution, this one API that we have integrated here for this use case, we can just go towards any other market as it is the same kind of integration, and also the data that we do retrieve is all normalized, and we don't have to adjust our product here. Another example, and also going to be my last example here, is I like to share some things that's common with the Account Insights product. So the Insights generates reports that can give us a detailed look on the financial situation over time. So we can create different stories helping your customers and driving your businesses. There are hundreds of different possibilities here to cross-reference data and to get you to know your customers a little bit. Just here on the screen as shown, examples like, oh, we see you have only 270 euros left in your bank account, but hey, notice your payment, your loan is just coming in 5 days, so you may want to put a break on your spendings. We can get engagements towards spending goals. We see also companies like Dreams, also a Swedish financial app. What they do is they give you the story, you want to invest into your dreams, you want to buy a new car, you want to take a nice travel. So they try to control your spendings and ping you proactively to make sure that you are able to achieve your dreams. That's very interesting. This only be possible if you know a little bit around customer spending behavior and what he's spending the money on. Yes, just those examples. I mean, there's so many more data that you can get from Account Insights. For instance, what kind of subscriptions are customers having today? Are they subscribing with a company like Netflix or Disney Plus, DAZN, and so on? You can try to provide possibilities for optimizing those subscriptions and upselling, changing the electricity provider or your cell phone provider, because you know those costs are a recurring cost every month, and you can analyze those and try to upsell to a better contract. So those are kind of things that we also here working in the Klarna to identify those possibilities. But there's more than just those things that I just mentioned. So there's more room for innovation out there. And I would like to show you a couple of examples that we can definitely think of when moving towards the open banking space. But very important here, first of all, we would like to mention is, I urge everybody really to embrace the current situation, make use of open banking, make use of the data to drive your products, to drive consumer engagement. And some of the examples here is as follows. If you look, for instance, into automatic investment engines, we see the first kind of things with those robo-advisors, with Peaks, with Elisa in Sweden. So they are trying to simplify investing, and you can use open banking data for that as well. The next one is basically check your financial status and move funds, for example, with Siri, Alexa, or Google Home. I mean, connect your devices to a bank account and create new customer experience. Another one is obviously the lending in the financing space. just as mentioned with Corona, I mean, it's very important to take a different angle on how do we look at a customer's financial situation, and open banking can definitely help you here to not only get a fair offer to your customers, but also to mitigate the risk for companies who wants to provide the loan. Next one is financial assistance. As just mentioned, you only have 500 euros left. Can you actually pay for a new TV that's cost you 700 euros? And you can tell us on the spot, hey, no, your bank account says you should not be spending or should not overspend your account because you still have a car repair that is not deducted from your account. That's still pending and due next week. So those kind of things is possible with open banking to give you somebody at hand that helps you to control your debt, control your financial situation. On the next one is crazy stuff like refrigerators, buying stuff that you need, right? I mean, we see some proof of concept, but you can also put some open banking in there. It's all possible. And last but not least, it's insurances, risk assessment, upselling to different insurances, making sure insurances get a whole picture around, okay, you want to finance your home, you want to create new insurances here and there to make sure they have a better understanding of the financial situation of the customer. Yes. And last but not least, a question for you guys. What would you like to do when you have access to a single API that offers over 5,000 banks in 22 European countries? If you look at the situation today, is we have the legislation in place. The RTS and the PC2 is not going to go nowhere anytime soon. So how can you innovate? How can you make use of this data that is provided? How can you make new products that helps you to do bank transfers in different ways? I mean, it's all about building great products and really solve what the customer's needs are. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the live Q&A. I'm delighted to be joined by George from Klarna, who's just presented that previous session here on the main stage. Good afternoon, George. How are you?
Hey, hi, Adam. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Very well. So we've got kind of just over 5 minutes, and there's a few questions that have come in from the audience, so I'm going to dive straight in. The first one is around kind of challenges, which is really interesting to kind of put to all of our speakers. That's kind of why most of our delegates and attendees are tuning in, is to kind of look at what they can learn from others and to implement in their own strategies. So what have been the main challenges when implementing kind of your open banking platform, specifically at Klarna? Over to you.
Oh, it's a great question. So as shown in a presentation, I mean, we've been around for over 15 years, building those connectivities towards different banks in the European markets, and I think it was all in line with our product offering back then. So we had to take our capabilities that we had and put it into a different product. So we had to obviously break up some technical monoliths and make this whole open banking offering flexible, and so you're not going through a specific user journey, but you can decide what you need to do or what you want to do. If you want to get a statement, if you want to make a payment, or get the account holder name. So those kind of things to break up the technical back end and to provide a single API that you can also put out on an external market. So that was a quite challenging thing to actually rethink the product that has been around for a decade. I think recently with the developments within the open banking space, PC2 and the RTS, I think as also all other people in the market that has to deal with APIs. I mean, there has been like the sandboxes around PC2. Then there have been the production PC2 APIs, the dealing with those kind of things, discussions with the banks, but also aligning the PC2 world and what is then offered from the banks with your current offering that you've been building up on yourself independently in the past. So combining those two and normalizing the data, that was a little bit tricky. And how do you monitor the process around this? Do 24/7 on call, and this is things that comes then along when you want to run a scalable product.
Great stuff. Thanks for that. Really, really insightful there, and great detail, which is of huge benefit to our audience. interesting. The next question, we're going to look at it from a regional perspective. A lot of the chat, if you like, around the inner circle within Europe is around kind of UK open banking implementation, CMA, FCA, looking at regulation when it comes to PSD2, etc. And that kind of covers off the European market. You mentioned kind of growth plans and looking at the US. I'd be really keen to kind of get a bit of a snapshot from you in terms of looking at the US and what the next steps are there for open banking. We're kind of live in Canada. Obviously, the second phase of the consultations recently announced just a few weeks back. So things are moving there, but two very different jurisdictions. Be interested to get your thoughts on the US from a regional perspective.
So US being a very, very big market and a great opportunity, obviously. So yes, what we have seen and experienced so far is that the things that are happening in Europe. I mean, we have also big companies from the US looking at Europe, trying to establish business in Europe using the banking data we have at hand due to the PC2. But also then they have the reverse questions. How can we now also leverage the same kind of technology that we have in Europe in the US market? So I think there is basically a big need for those companies to offer their services globally. So it is a must for the US that they have to establish some sort of a PC2 framework or some ways of accessing the data. But if this is going to be for free, like in Europe, we don't know yet. We've seen first steps in banks offering proprietary APIs where you can have added value services. So we do also expect that there will be a lot of those services available from the banks, but at a certain price. So that will eventually also drive the cost in the market of providing such an open banking API. But yes, it's going to be very interesting for us as well, as we've been making big moves with Klarna in the US around our shopping experience e-commerce. And we would love to back our products with open banking capabilities. So that's why also looking into the US here.
Yeah, great. Really keen to kind of keep an eye on that product roadmap when it comes to kind of embedded finance in the US space. And then the final question that we have here that's come through is very much around kind of your decision-making process when it comes to new product launches. So how do you decide which products to bring forward to market? And ultimately, I guess, the impact that has on the customer. So, how is that decision taken internally at Klarna?
Yeah, also very interesting. So at Klarna, we're trying to look obviously at the consumer. So what does the consumer who we're interacting with on a daily basis, what are their needs? What are their maybe also complaints? What are their feedback towards Klarna? And just to see how can we as Klarna minimize user journeys, optimize ways of spending your time while doing your online shopping, while spending your time in the app. So we're trying to be as frictionless as possible, and then looking at the products and the requests and trying to form new products to help our customers in the first place. So I think that's the way of thinking that we have in here at Klarna. What can we do for the product, for the consumer, and what is the next step for a consumer to enhance our current offering, if it not comes to like even providing completely new products to customers. So it's a lot about measuring, interacting with our customers, and then also listening to market trends and also things that's been done around the globe in different markets that is very beneficial for the consumer, and see if we can adapt within our products.
Great stuff. Thanks for that, George, and thanks also for being so open with regards to your answers there in terms of looking at the Klarna journey to date and ultimately kind of where your strategy is taking you. That's a wrap for the main stage right now, and delegates have the opportunity, if they've got a VIP premium pass, to head over to one of the other three stages, which will be starting shortly. So all that's left for me to do is say many thanks specifically to yourself, George, for joining us for live Q&A, and also thanks to Klarna for supporting the event. And don't forget, you can connect with George and all of the Klarna team via the Swapcard app or either through LinkedIn. So many thanks for that, George, and thanks to everyone for tuning in.